The Heumann Perspective. Judy Heumann is a white woman in her early 70s with dark hair extending over her ears. She wears glasses and red lipstick and uses a motorized wheelchair. Chella is a genderqueer, transmasculine Asian person in his 20s with thick black hair. He wears an open collared shirt and two thin gold chains around his neck. They appear in a split screen video interview with Judy at the left.
Welcome back to the Human Perspective. And you can see that Chella and I are kind of suppressing some laughter because it's really been an honor for us to get to know each other over the last number of months. And in some way, we're an intergenerational mix on so many levels. And then he's teaching me so much about aspects of life that I'm very happy to learn about. So, Chella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Chella Man. I am a 22-year-old deaf, trans, genderqueer, Asian, Jewish artist. And I'm honored to be here. And I can say the same to Judy about teaching me so much. And just, it's been like an honor and a privilege to get to know her.
So, Chella, as I say frequently about you, you are in many ways a man before your time. And by that I mean you've gone through so many um, changes in your life and by the age of 22. And it's not just that you've been evolving, because we all do, but your ability to express that evolution, I think, is what particularly attracts me to much about you. So maybe if we could just step back a little bit. And when did your family first know that you had some form of a hearing loss?
Well, well, thank you, first of all, for all of that. I feel flattered. And I'm probably blushing. But my family first knew, I was first diagnosed when I was 4 years old. And we don't really know, it was never clear why or how, so it could have likely been when I was born I've had it, and they just didn't know because they didn't test me for hearing back then.
So you define yourself as being transgender. And I'd like if you could give us a little bit of information about the journey that you've been on. Because just like with the discussion of your hearing loss and how you've moved from one stage to another, you started on this journey when you were quite young. And wondering if you could share a little bit about uh, this journey, but also, you so eloquently discuss this in many ways, and in the book that will be coming out, it's an important part of what you've written about. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that, please.
From a very early age, I always knew that my body just did not connect with my mind. And I didn't really know what that meant because I didn't have the resources and the language to articulate this. And when I got older and when puberty hit, I felt like the only option for me at the time was to do my best to take all of that research I had learned from watching femme people and girls and just trying to be that and just live this performance, live this lie essentially, because I didn't know what trans was. I didn't have any representation. I grew up in a small town in central Pennsylvania that was very conventional. I always sum it up by saying Trump came to speak at my high school, and that's kind of the area that it was. And so I just felt like there was no other option. And so for my own safety and basically like the only option I felt like I had, I tried to fit in, and I grew out my hair and I wore the clothes, the very clothes that I didn't connect with. And it felt so painful, you know. I felt like my life wasn't mine anymore, but I had to do it for my own safety. Luckily, I graduated high school early and I came to New York. Of course, like, this is a queer hub. Like, I met trans people. I met people. I saw gay people walking down the street holding hands, which is something you would never see where I grew up. And it just restored my 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 hope for humanity. I felt like I had time traveled like 150 years into the future, which I feel like I kind of did, like Portal, you know. So from there, I I was able to befriend other trans individuals who told me about the stereotypes of gender and the stereotypes and misconceptions within the queer community, such as, you know, having to look a certain way to claim a certain identity, which is never true. The gender binary. And this has led me to present myself the way I do, which is stereotypically masculine, but I identify as genderqueer or non-binary, which means that I just don't subscribe to the gender binary. I feel like who I am is beyond that and cannot be encompassed by two choices.
So, when you came to New York, you were discussing how you were finding so many different communities. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about the importance of these communities. And because you've got the Jewish community, the trans community, the Asian communities, on and on. How have you been melding those into your being?
They are the very foundations that have healed me. You know, they are they allow me to imagine what's possible for myself, and they allow me to feel represented. You know, even like they don't. It's the kind of representation that is so intimate because rather than seeing it on a magazine, you can talk to them, you can sit with them, you can cry with them and hold them, and that has been so healing. And I have gone out of my way to establish my own chosen communities, chosen families in that sense. And from that, I've been able to heal so deeply and understand that what I went through is not something that is other, you know, like discrimination is mass experience. And people don't have to be my exact identities to understand what I went through and feel what I went through. I think that human beings all go through similar things, but similar cycles, but they're all for different reasons.
I mean, it's really, I think, the fact that you are able to be so expressive of who you are and really uh, publicly expressive because it's such an intrinsic, not only part of who you are, but I think very much something that you feel is important to share with other people. When did that part of you begin to emerge where you felt the importance of being more public about who you are?
Oh man, it was as soon as I had the language to it, as soon as I really connected the dots and was building up those chosen families that we spoke about, as soon as I was healed enough to be like, you know what, I'm at a point where I have the resources, the community, and the stability mentally and physically to be able to share this with people. That's a huge privilege. But people go their whole lives without having that privilege. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I just don't want anyone, older or younger, to have to go through what I did and experience that scarcity and confusion and lack of representation because the world is so much more beautiful with us in it, with people who are queer, with disabled people, with BIPOC people. It's so much more colorful, you know, like it just opens up this door of possibilities, not just for like us, but for people who just don't even know about these other options. it's just a whole nother world of abundance. And I don't think people realize how much scarcity we live in because they're not aware of the other options.
I think the word abundance for you is a completely right on word.
Oh, thank you.
Abundance also because of your talents. Why has the deaf community been so important to you?
I just felt like I was living a different life, growing up, not knowing anyone else who was deaf or hard of hearing. I couldn't talk to people without having to explain like a scroll of different things. They just wouldn't understand. And when I talk to other deaf people or hard of hearing people, that scroll isn't necessary. They get it. There's so much less energy that is needed because they just get it. And that is what community is, being able to conserve that energy, keep it for yourself, and like understand why that connection is so sacred. I mean, they've also like enabled me to imagine a future like as a deaf parent. I've always had trouble communicating with children because of like the way they like mumble or their high pitched voices. I can't hear them that well. And then I had the pleasure and privilege of meeting the Ridloffs, Douglas and Lauren Ridloff, who are beautiful human beings. They are both deaf, and they have two deaf sons. And meeting them and seeing their family in one day, like enabled me to be like, I think I can have a family in the future. It's just so important. I mean, it's changed my life.
But let me say really how much I appreciate you. How my whole team really appreciates you because of how you bring your whole self into everything that you do. And I believe you're a really important model for people of any age to recognize moving through that struggle and really trying to find who we are, which changes every day, is really such a critical part of life. So, Chella, would you just quickly tell us about your upcoming book?
Yes, so my upcoming book is titled Continuum, and it's part of this collection called the Pocket Change Collective, published by Penguin, and it's written for 14 plus ages. It's a super condensed version of my story. It's basically like reading my diary, and I'm really excited for it to come out because I worked very hard to make a lot of issues that are seen as complex within our world very simplistic and basic because I truly believe they are at its core. So that is coming out June 1st this year, 2021, and it's available for pre-order now.
It's a beautiful book, and I encourage you all to order it and to read it and to share it. So thank you, Chella. I will talk with you soon, and thank you for being who you are.
Thank you for being who you are, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Video concludes with Judy's contact information and a black and white photo of Judy outdoors speaking into a microphone and wearing a Sign 504 button.